Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in Modern. Today we're looking at Living End. Living End is a combo deck that seeks to cycle or otherwise bin creatures in its early turns, and then cascade into Living End, wiping out all opposing creatures while bringing back its own from the graveyard. As a member of the Cascade family, it's linear, consistent, and fast, nearly always able to cast a Living End by turn 3. The same tricks that Crashing Footfalls pulls are applicable to Living End as well. It can cast Violent Outburst to Living End at instant speed and protect it with Force of Negation. Don't forget that Violent Outburst pumps your creatures, and you can simply decline to cast Living End off the Cascade trigger. Any creatures that easily die for cheap are at a premium, such as the free cards Street Wraith and Grief. There are also a number of cycling or channel creatures with useful effects, such as Colossal Sky Turtle and Waker of Waves. Sideboarding and how to beat it. Sideboarding is fairly straightforward. Cut the worst creatures or Force of Negation if it's not applicable in a matchup for whatever you need. Where Living End excels over Crashing Footfalls is in its ability to put much greater power on the board and wipe out opposing creatures, but that added power comes alongside the major drawback of being susceptible to graveyard hate. Living End gets completely hosed not only by anti-Cascade cards like Chalice of the Void, but also graveyard hate. But whereas Crashing Footfalls could play a normal mid-range game even if its Cascade plan were shut off, Living End does nothing if it doesn't have access to its graveyard. When sideboarding, you must be cognizant of potential hate cards like Rest in Peace and choose what to bring in accordingly. The deck also fares much more poorly against non-creature decks since the card Living End has no effect on them and the deck has few ways to interact. Another way to fight Living End is by beating it at its own game. Usually this comes in the form of free casting the Evoke Elemental Solitude or Endurance in response, but some decks can also discard giant creatures like Wormcoil Engine or Archon of Cruelty before Living End is cast. As the Living End player, you may have to cast Living End multiple times before you have a superior board state. There really aren't any tips and tricks to this deck, it's pretty straightforward. Just cycle and bin creatures to the graveyard and then cascade into Living End. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Living End. I want to thank my fellow players in the Magic community for whom sharing their experiences helps make these guides possible. You can find additional resources, such as an up-to-date deck list, in the description. If you think I left out anything important or got something wrong, please leave your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see what deck we look at next time.